Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Phillips here, and this is going to be a very important presentation on keeping after-school programs. But in particular, this is a really important program to keep for our local community, which really helps inner city youth really focus on both their academics and behavior. This is going to be a presentation worked on by Emily Bowers, Ebony Hines, myself, Nicholas Phillips, and Robin Titus for our seminar and applied behavioral sciences course. So we're going to start just with a brief introduction of this presentation. It's got to be known that our local community center, it's done such a fantastic job the last 2 years, improving both the academic, behavioral, and physical well-being of troubled inner city youth. Even though basketball might be the centerpiece of our program, the ability for both social emotional development and tutoring, they're present. Despite this awareness that we have of our program and the successes it brings, our funding is unfortunately at risk. We are really trying to seek out important grant funds. So to do this, as a result, we're going to be conducting evaluation research to ensure that the future of this program stays intact. So let's start first by looking at our research question for this presentation. It's going to read, to what extent does participation in the community center's basketball program influence the well-being of troubled inner city youth, particularly in the realms of academic and behavioral performance? When we were just going over this research question, we found so much literature that really just supports our idea and our understanding that our community center does a great job. Fritz et al. 2020, they found that an increased physical activity leads to improved academic performance. And you know what? This is what we found as well. Smith et al. 2017, they found that juvenile crime statistics, they decrease significantly when supervised after-school activities are in session. Once again, we found that the behavioral performance of our program really worked wonders. But that's to our eye. In order to do this, though, to actually test this, we had to conduct research. This really resulted in coming up with an evaluation study methodology for this. And we are going to be using a mixed methods evaluation for our presentation and for really discovering just how true effectiveness program is. So just to briefly describe a mixed methods evaluation, it's a comprehensive evaluation of the program's impact, achieving both quantitative and qualitative approaches according to BABI 2017. So the qualitative data in this presentation is going to shed light on the personal experiences and the broader social impact that this program provides. Meanwhile, quantitative data is going to provide more of this measurable proof of its effectiveness, really the statistics that, you know, our grant funding people are really looking for. So for example, our qualitative data, excuse me, is going to focus on the case studies, interviews with students, stuff like that, while our quantitative data is going to be looking more at the different surveys that we hand out to students, along with statistical analysis on both academic and behavioral performance. This leads us to the evaluation criteria and measurement criteria that we have when conducting this research. When we're looking at academic performance, we're going to be looking at if the participating youths maintain or improve their C plus average. The C plus average is really the requirement to even really participate in the basketball program. So we're going to be looking at to see if this basketball program is allowing these youths to really keep the C plus average, or if they're getting better. Zhang et al. 2023 in our research, they found that they discovered that students participating in sports were actually more likely to have better grades than those not participating in sports. Some people kind of feel that there's like a really hard time balance of getting it right between sports and academics, but really, sports really help. We're going to be looking at behavioral shifts. We're going to be monitoring the changes, such as maybe like a reduction in school disciplinary actions or enhancement in social interactions. We talked about the social emotional development that this program brings, at least to the naked eye. And D'Oliveira Major et al. 2023, they decided that actually a safer environment brings the potential for improvement in social and emotional development. And our program strives on being really a safe space for a group of students that don't necessarily have that in their everyday life. And while this isn't necessarily like a major criteria point for us, we are going to kind of look at physical health as well. We're going to be observing the changes in overall health and physical fitness levels, such as, For instance, their physical education classes, are they attending PE class and stuff like that? The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services 2021, they've researched that physical well-being, whether it's lower obesity rates, anything like, anything similar to that kind of like physical health that we think of with students. They're actually seen in low-income students participating in after-school activities. Um, this is a really community of students that maybe are prone to higher obesity rates due to maybe a lack of affordable grocery options. So, being in after school activities, it's actually been seen that lower obesity rates are possible. So, that's some of the evaluation criteria we're going to be looking at. In terms of measurement criteria, we're going to be looking at the academic performance. This includes students' grades, the C plus average. Are they attending class? Are they having high attendance and make sure, they're on track for graduation, in which the graduation rates. We're also going to be looking at not necessarily graduation for like seniors, obviously. We're looking more at the younger group. So are they graduating elementary school? Or then they're getting into middle school well. For the behavioral shifts, we're going to be looking at juvenile delinquency crimes. Are our youths, maintaining good behavior outside of the school and outside of our program? Are they staying good within the school? Are they not getting referrals and suspensions? Also, number of detentions as well. For physical health, we are going to keep track of this by looking at who's eating and receiving school lunches. Once again, the obesity rates, and once again, the physical education participation. Every good research project needs to be ethically valid, and this is kind of done with the Institutional Review Board, the IRB. So to handle the IRB for us, we're going to present our research on how the study is going to be conducted. We're going to provide information on how to recruit participants, gain the materials needed for the students' subjects to become successful. We're also going to ensure that research is ethically acceptable and complies with regulations, plans for obtaining informed consent. That's a really important part for us. Last, the research is going to address DEI needed for the program. DEI initiatives are really important, especially for this program. We got to address that those from low income backgrounds, which includes this research. The After School Alliance 2017, on a similar note, they asserted that after school activities have a positive impact for low income students, and it also helps to narrow the gap of performance versus wealthy counterparts. There is a big gap between poor students and how they perform in school versus the wealthy students. So after school activities can help. This informed consent that we have is going to be provided to ensure the safety and full disclosure between staff and peers. They're going to understand what they're getting themselves into, what they can expect, any dangers associated with us. In terms of like actually recruiting participants, we're going to be we're going to be asking for confidentiality. We're going to make sure that the students being selected, they know what they're getting themselves into. That's the importance of the IRB. We're not just going to say, we're not going to force anybody into this. That's not ethically valid. Let's look at the typology of the study. So it's going to be an exploratory kind of study. Exploratory research is a research method that aims to understand a problem that's not well defined, not researched enough, or not well enough understood, according to Babby 2017. These research methods are used to generate new ideas or hypotheses about existing topics, and it's really important to gain insight for future research. For us, we kind of really read that there was some major inconsistency of research of the effectiveness of after school activities, particularly those in sports. So that's why it kind of fits well. We were reading a lot of research articles that actually almost claim the opposite of some of the other research articles we found. Some are saying that there was little to no effect. But I think it's also important to understand the context, like who are the population involved in the research in the programs themselves. For us, we really think that low income students can really benefit from after school activities, which not all the research we found aligned with that message. So this takes us to our logic model, kind of like 5 different steps of what we expect to kick out of this presentation and research. We're going to start with the inputs. What are we putting into this presentation? What are we doing? This includes funding from the original grant. We got the funds for the basketball court and equipment. academic resources and tutors, mentors and coaches, employees and volunteers at community center. These are all the inputs. This is all the resources that the community is putting into, we're putting into to make sure that the program stays successful. The inputs are also kind of closely aligned to the activities, whether it's conducting basketball training camps, organizing the annual basketball tournaments, tracking academic performance, this that C plus average requirement that we, need to be in the program, and providing training on life skills and mentoring. These are the activities that are involved that are really closely related to the inputs that, are really used to evaluate how we're doing, how this community center is doing with the program. This then leads us to the outputs, what are the activities involved that are kind of being like, that are really like the resources being strained out. These are the numbers of tutoring sessions conducted, participants' academic records, mentorship workshop attendance, and actually the overall attendance in the basketball camps and tournaments themselves. Once we have the outputs, we can kind of get an idea of what the expected outcomes are going to be based on the inputs and outputs that we have. So for us, we believe that the outcomes are include participants' basketball skills have improved, academic performance will be at least a C plus average, but most likely higher. Um, Increases in attendance and academic activities. Also, the socio-emotional development that we're talking about, whether it's improvement in teamwork or improvement in leadership skills, are all these are the expected outcomes that we expect to improve upon. There's also just the impact that this program is going to have. Long-term increased rates of high school graduation, middle school, elementary school. These are the stepping stones to get into high school. It's really a preparation stage. We also expect later the impact that this program will have includes higher participation rates in vocational training or college, which also includes improved employed readiness and career opportunities. And then, most importantly, honestly, for us, we know we are targeting juvenile delinquency, so decreased crime rates and improved community ties. So another impact that we also expect. Also, and then we kind of come here to the protocol of our study. This is really the most important part of our study. We can't go off without a protocol, how everything is going to happen. So this begins with our objective. We're going to evaluate how the basketball program affects participants' social conduct, physical health, and academic achievement. Note that the physical health maybe not the most important one here. However, physical health is so closely related to social academic behavioral performance that it's has to be included in our objective. So gathering participants, this is such an important part. We're going to be sampling about 50 to 100 young people who have been involved in the program for at least a year. These are those who have been deemed as troubled inner city youth, 12 to 18 years old. While a lot of the programs people are younger, we kind of want to evaluate those that are older as well, which is kind of where these participants of recruitment comes in play. The control group is going to be consisted of 50 to 100 young people with comparable backgrounds who are not included in the program. This next part is really important, inclusion criteria. These are youth that consistently attend basketball training camps and competitions and maintain a C plus average in school, while the exclusion would be, those who don't. This also leads us to our ethical considerations of informed consent, confidentiality, and risk management of the program. So when we're recruiting participants, we have to make sure we're doing it respectfully. We can go off a list, like a quasi list of students who have been in the program before. We can reach out to them. Doesn't mean they're going to want to participate in the study. It's kind of like a purposive sampling kind of methodology to actually get these participants on board. But we do aim to get 50 to 100 young people. In terms of data collection, we're looking at academic performance. We can gather records of attendance at school as well as our GPA. For the physical health aspect, calculating stuff as BMI, degree of fitness, improvements in health, attendance in PE classes, all that stuff that we already mentioned. The social conduct, behavioral performance. We can utilize interviews and surveys to gauge how people's conduct, self-worth, and social skills have changed. How are they interacting with society? That's such an important part of behavior, especially for inner city youth who are troubled. Now for our data analysis section for this protocol. To assess the quantitative data, we're going to apply different statistical procedures. Statistical analysis is such an important part. Stats really make grant funding run around. For the qualitative side, we're focusing on this idea of thematic analysis, examining, the case studies and interviews that we had with the students to find recurring themes and insightful patterns for our research. Then we move on to reporting. Once we get all this and compile all this data, we're going to write up the report that includes both the statistics and testimonies from our data analysis to bolster the main conclusions. This also includes graphical supports in a report to demonstrate the program's impact using all stuff such as graphs, quotes, and charts. Finally, we'll do a presentation such as this at the end with our stakeholders to have official stakeholder meeting. This includes reports findings for possible sponsors, community leaders, and the grant providers. We need the grant money. We can't go without it. Also, with success experiences to make the impact more relatable, sharing our own unique experiences that the children have. To wrap this presentation up, previous literature, it does emphasize the importance, for the most part, of after-school activities, particularly those with the sports basis. Though we did say that there was conflicting research, most of it was positive on both youth academic and behavioral performance. The program, it should also place a focus on improving physical health, as we have mentioned, because this does ultimately assist in increasing academic and behavioral performance. Intersectionality is such an important part of understanding really the human experience. There's just not one thing that defines one person. There's people have multiple different identities, and this includes physical health. Physical health impacts so much. If it impacts our academic performance, if we're not eating well, you know, are we going to be studying as well? Finally, continuing conversations with parents and their children regarding the impact of the program will be key in continuing grant funds. We're working with a young population here. They can't necessarily give their informed consent. So that's why it's so important that we also work with parents, that there's this aligned mission, that we know that we have the full trust of the parents to ensure that this program really lasts forever. And with that said, this concludes our presentation. These are references for our presentation, and I really thank you everyone for listening, and I really hope that our program can get the grant funds we need because it's such an important part for our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.